All right, welcome back to the program. Time to talk some Jays, and they picked up a win. We're just talking about turning a corner. Maybe it's just one game, 2 wins in a row. I think it's the first 2-game win streak since sweeping the Braves back in early April.
It feels like the corner's been
Or
turned,
early,
doesn't
not
it?
even April. This month they played the Braves. It feels like so long ago.
Wow, it's a long time.
But yeah, they get back on track. 7-2. The bats are working. I think more importantly for the Jays, this guy behind us, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., had a 3-hit night. Looked better at the plate, but you can tell he's still not quite there yet. Let's bring in our next guest, Andrew Stoeten. Andrew, how are you, man?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me back.
So what did you make of Vladdy last night?
I think, it's good. It's good to see him making that kind of progress. Some batted ball luck there. I think the Blue Jays kind of benefited from that overall. But, you're hearing good things about, his process and working on the mechanics. I kind of keep looking at the fact that, he tweaked his knee in that game against the Yankees, I think at this, was it 16th? And his numbers kind of went, sideways from there. And I'm not sure why. I mean, I guess they don't talk about injuries in that way as affecting performance. They don't want to admit stuff like that. But I've been, wondering myself, is that why? He's been struggling a little bit lately, but whatever the case, hopefully he's been able to get through it here. And this is, as you say, turning the corner.
I'm sure you saw it, but his uncle, Wilton Guerrero, has been around the team, and it looks like they allowed him to be around the team to maybe talk to Vladdy and help him with what's going on. Have you heard anything about what he's done or what he said to him?
The specifics of that, not really, but it is interesting the way that the Jays are willing to let guys like that come by. Dante Bichette, comes up with Bo. I think that the Guillermo Martinez, the hitting coach, has said that he's open to that. I believe I saw him quoted as saying, I can only say things so many ways, so many times, and just a new ears, new eyes, a new voice can sometimes help a little bit. And I think that that's probably a good thing that he's not, afraid to have somebody sort of encroaching on that space of his as the hitting coach. So, Wilton's a guy who, Vlad's obviously really close to, has worked with him for years. It can't hurt, anything that might, unlock whatever it is sort of mechanically that it seems to have been, hindering him lately, can only be a good thing. And to see it pay off, immediately, hopefully boosts the confidence and does all those other, intangible things that can help him get back on track. I'd like to see him hit the ball in the air and out of the ballpark maybe first before we're really sure about this corner turn.
There was a great video of Bo talking to him in the dugout as well. And just, they go way back in their careers, and they both respect each other. That was a great video. Because, baseball, Andrew, is different to so many other sports, right? I mean, there's no time for reflection in baseball. There's game after game after game. And before you know it, you're in this tornado spinning out of control, it seems. It is one of the most mental games, I think, in sport.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think you saw it sort of collectively with the Jays over the course of this month and all those losses that they picked up. But yeah, in particular, like a hitter, I mean, we'll see with Alek Manoa as well. It is the mental aspect of it is really tough. Pitchers obviously have those days in between starts. But yeah, for Vladdy, it keeps coming and keeps coming. And it can be tough to get you out of those sort of things. I mean, in hockey, you can grip your stick too tightly, and I think you hear that kind of terminology in baseball a bit too, and maybe that's it. And I think Vlad's sort of admitted, or people have admitted for him, that maybe he, tries too hard to produce with each swing and gets out of his, game plan a little bit sometimes. And that's something we've heard about him in the past. And I think that could happen to anybody. And the trick is obviously, being able to get back together. And that's taken a little while this time, but hopefully it's something that has happened at this point.
Andrew, on top of Vlad's 3-hit night, Yusei Kikuchi bagged another win, 5 innings pitched, 4 strikeouts, 2 earned runs. If I told you at the beginning of the season that Yusei Kikuchi would have a 6-2 record on the season and be one of the Jays' best pitchers, would you have thought I was crazy?
Maybe not crazy, but yeah, no, I mean, nobody expected that. It's a bit absurd, but also I would say that if you look at some of the underlying stuff in his last few performances, there are some troubling signs there. 5 walks last night or whatever it was. He kept walking guys, and that has been the big issue for him, especially last year. He's a guy who's going to give up hard contact. He's going to give up home runs, and he can get away with that if he doesn't give away free passes. But when there are guys on base, those turn into 2-run home runs. We saw that in the first inning last night. William Contreras hit a bomb off him, which kind of was a wall scraper, but still it was like, oh, it's such a deflating moment after he kind of had a pretty decent inning. And he was able to get back on track, which was good, but it was not exactly the most fun outing to watch, even though, yeah, picking up wins, definitely in a better place than he was last year, but that is setting the bar extremely low.
Andrew, you summarized it perfectly. It wasn't the most fun outing to watch.
No.
That is Yusei Kikuchi. I think that should be his tagline.
Yeah.
He can't be giving up home runs like he's doing it, right? 15. I think it's second in the MLB, which isn't great. Another pitcher who looked fantastic, continues to look fantastic. Nate Pearson was throwing some serious gas yesterday. He looked really good. He struck out the side. When does a conversation happen between John Snyder and either him or the pitching coach where it's like, listen, we need to put this guy in high leverage situations? Does that happen now?
I think so. I think we're already starting to see it ramp up a little bit. I mean, I know it was a 7-2 game last night, but there was some leverage there. There were thoughts, when Yimi Garcia had trouble in the 9th inning, and Romano might come in, like the Jays really want to get these wins sort of banked and closed down, and are in that spot where they can use some of the relievers after some games where they weren't necessarily necessary, the high leverage guys. But I think, yeah, Nate Pearson's performance is really speaking for itself right now. I love that he can go multiple innings, and that I would kind of worry about actually if I was Snyder or Pete Walker, just in terms of if he becomes a 1-inning guy, what are you doing there? Because I think that's that could make him a real weapon for them, and having him go a couple innings at a time. But that conversation I'm sure has been had and has to be had because he's just looked great.
Are they banking on Green and Ryu to come back at some point as well? I mean, they've been seen now around the cages. It'd be huge if they come back and start pitching well. Ryu, especially a lefty from the pen, would be pretty handy late in the season. Is that like almost like a trade deadline pickup if that comes to fruition?
I mean, I think that's kind of how they viewed it, especially the Green thing. Ryu, I love Ryu, and it's been so fun to watch him pitch, but it really, the wheels started falling off like 2 years ago, and then he got hurt a year ago and has been gone for a year. So my expectations there are low, and I hate to feel that way because he's, was such a fun, big, boisterous-ish kind of guy to watch pitch, and you kind of don't understand how it's all working, how he's carving teams up, and I kind of love those guys. Green to me is more the trade deadline pickup guy, and I think the Jays, that kind of is reflected in the weird contract that he signed. It could go as long as it could become a 4-year deal, I believe. Like there's options this year where they could pick him up for another couple of years, and it's kind of complicated, but clearly this is a guy who has a really great track record as a reliever, has basically never had a bad season, coming off Tommy John, so that's a risk, and that's why the contract kind of got weird. But I think that's going to be a guy who should be a weapon for them, coming into the bullpen basically around the trade deadline. So yeah, I think that's probably what you're going to think about that acquisition as.
Speaking of a guy who should be a weapon, that's Alek Manoa. Andrew, every time I watch him play, I feel like right now I'm so emotionally invested because I want him to do well. Not just the Jays, but for him, because everyone knows he's a really good pitcher. There's a reason why the Jays consider him an ace. I think tonight, this is just how I feel. I'm curious to hear your opinion, but I feel like it's a good spot for him against this Brewers team. They're a good team, but they're obviously not hitting the ball very well. Do you think this is somewhat of maybe not a bounce back spot, but a spot where maybe he can start figuring some things out?
I think absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's not, running the gauntlet that is the lineups of, the teams in the AL East, for example, or a lot of the, teams in divisions that are better than the American or the next Central. The Brewers are a good team. It's not going to be easy for them, but I think, yeah, you're kind of looking at some of the guys in the lineup, and these are kind of scrap heap pickups who are really on hot streaks. And it does make you feel like maybe that there's an opportunity there for him to figure things out, like you say, and to relax about it a little bit. And I think that that's what he needs, because they don't really have any, we talked about Ryu, he's still a little ways off. They don't really have anyone in the minor leagues that you can kind of think of as he's ready to go and come in and do better than Manoa. I think that continuing to stick with Manoa is probably the only option, but also the best option, just because once he gets going, if he gets going, it's going to have to be against big league hitters, and it's and you're going to be so much better off for it. And like you say, yeah, he was an ace, or is an ace, pitched on opening day, but was also a really high draft pick, as all the way through his career, never really had anything like this sort of failure. So there's all the reason in the world to believe that he's going to be able to figure it out. But it's tough to watch as he struggled through it. So yeah, giving him a little bit of an easier lineup than say the Orioles or the Yankees is it can only be a good thing, I think.
We talked about turning the corner at the beginning of this segment. So it's only fitting we kind of close off the segment and talk about turning the corner in regards to George Springer's average is up to 260, slugging percentage is almost around 400. Has Springer turned that corner? We're going to start seeing the George Springer of old, or Is there still something worries about him?
I think so. I hope so. I mean, you're seeing more red on his baseball savant page, which is sort of the, looking at all the underlying StatCast numbers and the expected averages and the exit velocities and stuff like that. That's starting to come up. I think his average exit velocity is pretty low still, but that's maybe a factor of hitting a lot of flares early on in the season and just not driving the ball as well as we know he can. There were a lot of gloves that he sort of found early, so I think that it was kind of a mirage how bad it looked at times. But yeah, definitely better to see him actually, looking like the George Springer you expect, even if you continue to expect, as a guy gets older and, the production's going to slip a little bit year by year, but yeah, it was not ready to grapple with the world where he's fallen off the face of the earth.
Yeah, a lot of potential corner turning going on with the Toronto Blue Jays right now. Andrew, appreciate you coming on as always. Thank you so much.
Anytime, guys.